Hi everyone, this is Aaron, and I'm here today with Pastor Matt Powell. Pastor Matt, we received a question, and this person wants to know, what does the Bible say about depression?
When we talk about depression, the Bible does speak a lot about it. Maybe not in the sense of clinical depression, so we have to sort of define our terms carefully. When it comes to depression, the Bible does talk a lot about emotions and how we feel. Again, emotions and how we feel is not a product of the fall. Maybe what produced those emotions are a product of the fall, but the emotions or feelings itself is not a product of the fall. God made us with the capacity to be sad, to be happy, etc. And you see this particularly in Genesis chapter 2 when God creates Eve to Adam. Adam exclaims, "This is the one." And in the Hebrew, he's genuinely happy. He's genuinely excited. And so we know that feelings are a part of God's creation and that it is good. Now, having said that, the way I like to think of feelings, it's simple, is that feelings can be a good slave, but can also be a terrible taskmaster. And when you go to a verse or a chapter, a book like 2 Corinthians, in which Paul pours out his heart to the Corinthians, this is a book in which Paul really expresses his feelings, particularly, if you want to put it this way, feelings of depression. After all, this is the church that has turned his back on Paul, that has retaliated against Paul for no reason. They've even looked to other teachers and have despised Paul. And so when Paul's writing 2 Corinthians, he's writing out of his heart that's been hurt. And something that's interesting, that when he writes to them, and he says in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 14, that's the love of Christ that controls us. Not his emotions, not his depression, and not his feelings, not even how he feels towards the church. And for Paul's case, for the Corinthian church, because they hurt him so bad, Paul easily could have retaliated and said, okay, fine, I have nothing to do with you guys anymore. I'm never going to minister to you. I'm never going to love you ever again. But he continues to minister to them anyways because of the statement that the love of Christ is what controls him. Now, how does that apply to our lives? Well, even though depression is a very real thing, and we never want to downplay the reality of that if a person does feel depressed, we want to consider that as being real. We don't want to downplay that at all. We also, at the same time, want to affirm that your depression or how you feel does not give us the excuse or the right to act in a certain way. So just because, let's say, I'm having a bad day, it doesn't excuse me when I take out my anger on Aaron or something like that, because that's still sinful. Rather, I am to control my emotions by submitting to Christ. That's what it looks like when we let the love of Christ control us. That even if I'm having a bad day, I still serve Aaron out of love and out of care, and not treat him like junk just because I've had a bad day. And so it is even with depression. Depression, whatever forms of that we feel, ultimately is an issue of the heart. And we can always respond well to it. When we're feeling sad, then the issue is, how will we respond in our sadness to other people? When it comes to clinical depression, things like that, honestly, I don't know if it's been proven that there is an organic an organic connection, meaning that there's a physical connection why people get depressed. But people who are depressed, they tend to turn on themselves. They tend to be selfish, basically. And so the issue with that is recognizing sin for what it is. And again, I say that very lightly. I don't say it in a very light way. I say that in a very understanding way, that people do struggle with the depression and even what they call clinical depression. But again, that shouldn't master our lives. It's ultimately Christ who should master our lives. It's ultimately Christ who should master how we live. That's why 2 Corinthians 5:14 says it's the love of Christ that controls us.
Thanks, Pastor Matt, and thank you everyone for listening. Remember to ask us all of your questions or check out our archive at unicoyquestions.tumblr.com. And you can also find us on Instagram at fcbc.unicoy. Thanks. See you soon.